Racers, on your marks! This episode we're speeding through the history of the fastest bot on four wheels. These are the basics on the ruler of the speed planet, Override. The story of Override begins with the first bot to bear the name, an Autobot motorcycle released in the original Transformers toy line in 1988. He was one of the Triggerbots, a team of Autobots armed with built-in flip-out weapons that could deploy in both modes. A profile for Override was written by Marvel Comics writer Bob Budiansky, which characterized him as an incredibly vain Autobot scout who loved blasting Decepticons and speeding down highways. When on the road, Override always made as much noise as possible so that everyone knew he was coming, both to intimidate enemies and to make sure that everyone else got out of his way, so that there was no chance another vehicle might bump into him and dent his precious bodywork. Override starred in 2 spotlight adventures in the Marvel comic book, alongside his fellow Triggerbots, Dogfight and Backstreet. First, a flashback story to the early days of the war recounted how the trio joined Optimus Prime on a quest for the ancient Cybertronian database, the Underbase, during which Override saved the group from a molten metal minefield. Then, a mission to the planet Shane saw the team narrowly avoid doom when they fell under the spell of a family of psychic vampires. Additionally, stories written exclusively for the British version of the comic brought the Triggerbots to Earth, where they faced the reanimated corpse of the Decepticon Starscream in the Peruvian jungle, and Override saved a group of humans from being sacrificed to the undead Decepticon by a native tribe. Override's toy was discontinued in 1989, but he returned for one final comic appearance in 1993, in a crossover story in an issue of G.I. Joe. He was part of a small Autobot team sent to Earth to engage Megatron, but with his toy long since off shelves, Override was now a very expendable character, and when he bravely tried going one-on-one with the Decepticon leader, Megatron tore him to pieces with his bare hands. With the character's death, the name Override wouldn't be heard in Transformers again for over a decade. Hasbro had plans to bring the name back in 2004's Transformers Energon by reusing it for a new character, a Minicon sports car intended to be packed in with the Autobot Ultra Magnus, but this figure was cancelled. However, since they'd gotten as far as renewing their trademark on the name, Hasbro soon put it to use on another new character in Energon's 2005 sequel, Transformers Cybertron. Cybertron Override transformed into a stylish, futuristic race car, inspired by the Mach 5 from the manga and anime series Speed Racer. Like all toys in the line, Override came with a Cyber Key accessory that plugged into the figure to unlock a hidden action feature, activating a pair of flip-out gun barrels, not unlike the Generation 1 original. Now, Override was originally conceived as a male character, and accordingly, the Cybertron cartoon was produced by Japanese studio Gonzo and aired on Japanese television with the character as a man, known in the Japanese market as Nitro Convoy. It was only when the time came to launch Cybertron in America a few months later that series broadcaster Cartoon Network voiced their concern that the show was lacking in female characters. And so, Hasbro chose to change Override's gender to female for the English version, a decision that carried over to most other international releases of the series. As seen in the cartoon, Override was the leader of a long-lost Cybertronian colony on the planet Velocitron. Cut off from the Transformers' homeworld millennia ago, Velocitron had evolved a society built around speed, where the fastest bots made the rules, and Override was the fastest of them all. Unfortunately, being the fastest was all Override cared about. When the Autobots and Decepticons arrived on Velocitron in search of the Cyber Planet Keys, artifacts of power they needed to save the universe from being consumed by a gigantic black hole, the cocky, self-centered Override had no interest in helping either side. Instead, excited by the prospect of a new challenge, she made both factions compete against her in a racing tournament to win Velocitron's key. The competition was won by the young Autobot speedster Hotshot, whose heroic and selfless actions during the races, helping other racers in the face of the Decepticons' cheating, opened Override's eyes, convincing her to at last look beyond her pursuit of personal glory and join the Autobots on their noble quest. She would go on to form a close bond with the Autobots' human ally, Lori Jimenez, as she helped to find the remaining cyberplanet keys and save the universe. Two notable recolors of Override's toy were available. Override GTS, representing the character after the events of the cartoon, in which form she appeared in the prose story The Dark Heart of Sandokan, released in 2007 by the Transformers Collectors Club, and the Japanese exclusive Dark Nitro Convoy, an evil clone of the Velocitron leader. Hasbro would only reuse the Override name on a new character once more, in the 2010 live-action movie toy line Hunt for the Decepticons, for a recolor of the Decepticon sports car Sideways. After that, it was clear that her prominent role in the cartoon had made Cybertron Override the definitive bot associated with the name, and as the new decade began, new incarnations of Override based directly on the Cybertron character began to appear in multiple new series. Override's first major role in this new era was in the 2011 novel Exiles, part of the multimedia project of interconnected stories known as the Aligned Continuity. This version of Override was co-ruler of Velocitron, sharing power with her political rival, Ransack, who schemed to take sole leadership for himself. When the Autobots and Decepticons came to Velocitron, Override pledged herself to Optimus Prime's cause. But Ransack and his followers sided with Megatron and rose up against Override, plunging Velocitron into civil war. Exiles then served as inspiration when Override was introduced into the world of IDW Publishing's comic books in 2015, which again depicted her as co-leader of Velocitron alongside Ransack. Override would continue to appear in the new universe introduced when IDW rebooted their comics in 2019, showing up in the 2021 Velocitron set miniseries Tread and Circuits, and in 2022's Last Bot Standing, a miniseries set in the far distant future, in which Override was one of the last living Transformers, eking out a grim existence at the end of the universe. The same year, a new toy of Override was released in the Speedia 500 collection, a Velocitron-themed subline of the Transformers Legacy toy line. The toy was originally planned to be a heavy retool of the Studio Series Hot Rod figure, but careful budgeting allowed it to be a brand new mold that faithfully recreated Override's original design. Adding all this together with a few other appearances here and there, and even a name check in the 2024 movie Transformers 1 as one of many racers participating in the Iacon 5000, it's clear that Cybertron Override has totally eclipsed the Generation 1 original. However, the classic Triggerbot hasn't been completely forgotten. He's made some very small cameos in a handful of comic books, and in 2015, a version of the character from the Aligned Continuity was introduced by the Japanese toy line Transformers Adventure, a recolor of the Autobot motorcycle Groove from that year's Combiner Wars line. This incarnation of Override would even appear in 2 short manga, battling the Decepticon thugs Runamuck and Runabout, then sadly meeting his end at the hands of the dimension-hopping Decepticon killer Deadlock. It's a slim selection of appearances that leave no doubt his Velocitron successor has well and truly left her namesake in her rear view mirror. And those are the basics on Override. Race down to the comments to fire off your fast thoughts about this bot. As always, if you've enjoyed this look at Transformers history and lore, subscribe for more, and if you become a channel member or support the show on Patreon, you can get early access to each new episode.